There's a moment just before you react, a moment so small it almost feels invisible. Someone interrupts you mid-sentence. They dismiss your idea. They laugh just slightly at the wrong time. Nothing dramatic, nothing obvious. But inside you, something shifts. Your chest tightens, your mind speeds up, your ego wakes up. And it whispers one thing. Say something. Don't let this slide. Show them who you are. And right there, in that exact second, most people lose. Not because they are weak, not because they lack intelligence, but because they are predictable. Because the moment you react emotionally, you give away control. Watch carefully. There are always the types of people in that moment. The first reacts instantly. They explain themselves. They defend their position. They try to fix how they're being perceived. They talk more. They try harder. They push their point across. But something strange happens. The more they try to prove their value, the less people actually feel it. Their words lose weight. Their presence shrinks. Their need becomes visible. Then there is the second person. They don't rush. They don't interrupt the moment. They pause. They look. They listen. They stay completely still. No immediate reaction. No emotional response. Just silence. And suddenly, everything changes. The room shifts. People start paying attention. The tension rises. The silence becomes heavy, because in a world where everyone reacts instantly, the one who doesn't stands out. The one who controls their reaction controls the situation. Here's the truth most people never realize. The moment you try to be liked, you become controllable, because the need to be liked forces you to adjust. You soften your tone. You filter your thoughts. You avoid saying things that might create discomfort. You begin to perform instead of express. And slowly, without noticing, you lose something far more valuable than approval. You lose respect, because respect is not built on comfort. It is built on control. Control over your emotions. Control over your words. Control over your presence. But most people were never taught this. They were taught the opposite. Be nice. Be agreeable. Be easy to deal with. And you will be accepted. But acceptance is not power. Acceptance makes you safe, predictable, replaceable. And the people who are always liked often become the ones who are quietly ignored. Because they never create tension. They never challenge anything. They never stand firm. They adapt too much. And people feel that, not consciously, but instinctively, because humans respect strength. Not loud strength, not aggressive strength, but controlled strength. The kind that doesn't react immediately. The kind that doesn't need validation. The kind that stays calm when tested. This is not about becoming cold. This is not about pushing people away. This is about understanding a deeper truth. Being liked feels good, but being respected changes everything, because respect creates space. It makes people think before they speak to you. It makes your words carry weight. It makes your silence meaningful. And once you experience that difference, you can't go back, because you start to see the pattern everywhere. In conversations. In relationships. In power dynamics. You start to notice who is reacting, and who is controlling. Who is chasing approval, and who is commanding presence. And then you realize something unsettling. Most people are not respected. They are tolerated, because they spent their lives trying to be liked. But the moment you stop chasing approval, the moment you stop reacting, the moment you choose control over validation, everything shifts. And that shift is where real power begins. You were not born needing approval. You were trained to need it. From the very beginning, your environment shaped you in subtle ways. When you behaved well, you were rewarded. When you followed instructions, you were praised. When you stayed quiet and didn't create problems, you were accepted. And slowly, your mind made a connection. If they approve of me, I am safe. If they reject me, something is wrong. This idea didn't form in a single moment. It repeated itself over years. At school, the students who listened were like more. At home, obedience was seen as respect. In social circles, fitting in became more important than standing out. So you adapted. You learned to read people's reactions. To adjust your tone depending on who you were speaking to hold back opinions that might create tension, not because you were weak, but because you were conditioned. And this conditioning runs deeper than behavior. It affects your brain. Every time someone approves of you, smiles, agrees, compliments you, your brain releases a small amount of dopamine, a reward, a signal that says, do this again. So you do. You repeat the behavior that got you accepted. You avoid the behavior that created discomfort, and without realizing it, you enter a loop. You start chasing approval. Not consciously, but automatically. You say yes when you want to say no. You agree even when you don't fully believe it. You prioritize being liked over being real, and over time, this creates a hidden problem. You lose control over your own behavior, because now, your actions are no longer based on what you think, but on how others might react. Imagine someone at work that always agree with their boss. They never challenge ideas. They take on extra tasks just to be seen as helpful. At first, they are appreciated, but something slowly changes. People begin to expect it, then rely on it. Then take advantage of it, because what is always available loses value, and what never resists loses respect. This is the trap of approval addiction. It makes you predictable. It makes you easy to manage. And in the language of power, it makes you weak. Not because you lack ability. But because you lack boundaries. Because when your behavior is controlled by the need for approval, you are no longer in control. And people can feel that, even if they never say it. They sense when someone is trying hard to be liked. They sense when someone is avoiding conflict, and instinctively, they stop taking that person seriously. This is the hidden cost. You gain acceptance, but lose authority, and most people never realize it's happening. There are the paths most people don't realize they are choosing. One leads to being liked. The other leads to being respected. At first, they look the same. Both involve people. Both involve communication. Both seem like forms of social success, but beneath the surface, they are completely different. Being liked is built on comfort. You agree with others. You avoid tension. You make people feel good around you. You become easy to be with, easy to talk to, easy to accept. And because of that, people enjoy your presence. But respect does not work that way. Respect is built on boundaries. It comes from saying no when necessary, from disagreeing when it matters, from not adjusting yourself just to maintain approval. And this creates something. Most people avoid discomfort. Because when you stop agreeing with everything, you create friction. When you stop trying to please everyone, you become unpredictable. And unpredictability makes people pay attention. This is why the most liked person in a group is often not the most respected. They are enjoyable, but not influential. Present, but not powerful. Imagine two individuals in the same environment. The first agrees with everything. They laugh at every joke. They support every idea, even when they don't fully believe in it. The second speaks less, but when they speak, it matters. They don't rush to agree. They pause before responding. They challenge ideas calmly, without emotion. Now watch what happens over time. The first person becomes background noise, reliable, but replaceable. People expect their agreement. They stop valuing their input, because it never changes. But the second person becomes a presence. People listen when they speak. They observe how they react. They take their words more seriously, not because they are louder, but because they are selective. Because their behavior is not predictable. And unpredictability creates weight. This is the core difference. Being liked makes you comfortable to others. Being respected makes you significant. But here is the truth most people struggle to accept. You cannot maximize both. At the same time, if your priority is to be liked, you will avoid tension. If you avoid tension, you will avoid boundaries. And without boundaries, respect cannot exist. Because respect requires clarity. It requires you to stand firm in moments where others would adjust. It requires you to risk disapproval. And that is what most people fear. Rejection. Discomfort. Being misunderstood. So they choose the safer path. They choose to be liked. But safety has a cost. It makes you predictable. It makes you easy to ignore. Because people don't measure value by comfort. They measure it by presence. By strength. By how someone carries themselves when it matters. So the question is no longer, do people like you? The real question is, do people take you seriously? Because in the long run, only one of those creates real power. Silence is not empty. It is full of control. But most people never experience it that way, because the moment silence appears, they rush to destroy it. They speak too quickly. They explain too much. They react before they even understand what is happening. Why? Because silence creates tension, and tension makes people uncomfortable. So they try to escape it. They fill the space with words, not because those words are powerful, but because they are afraid of what silence might reveal. And this is where power is lost, because the person who cannot handle silence cannot handle pressure. And the person who cannot handle pressure cannot control the situation. Watch any conversation carefully. When something unexpected happens, most people respond instantly. Not with clarity, not with intention, but with emotion. They feel the need to defend themselves, to correct the perception, to prove something, and in doing so, they give away their position, because now they are reacting. Now they are following the frame set by someone else. But silence changes the frame. Imagine someone challenges you in front of others. A subtle comment, a slight disrespect. Most people would respond immediately. They would explain, they would defend, they would try to regain control through words. But instead, you do something different. You pause. You don't rush. You look at them calmly. You say nothing for a moment. That moment feels longer than it is, and in that silence, pressure builds. Not on you, on them, because now they don't know what you're thinking. They don't know how you will respond. They don't know if they made a mistake. And uncertainty creates discomfort. So they start to react. They talk more. They explain themselves. Sometimes they even step back from what they said, all because you didn't react. That is the power of silence. It shifts the pressure. It moves control away from emotion and into awareness. Silence also sends a signal. It shows that you are not easily triggered, that you don't feel the need to defend yourself instantly, that you are in control of your response. And people feel that. They may not consciously understand it, but they respect it, because calmness under pressure is rare, and what is rare carries value. This doesn't mean silence is passive. It is not avoidance. It is strategy. You are choosing not to react immediately so you can respond with intention. Because when you remove urgency, you gain clarity. And when you gain clarity, you gain control. Then, when you finally speak, your words are fewer, but stronger. More direct, more precise, because they were not rushed. They were chosen. In a world where everyone is trying to be heard, the one who can control silence does not need to speak louder. They simply need to speak last. And when they do, people listen. Emotion is not your enemy, but uncontrolled emotion is your greatest weakness. Most people never realize this. They think power comes from speaking louder, reacting faster, defending themselves stronger. They believe intensity equals strength. But in reality, intensity without control exposes you. Because the moment someone can trigger your emotions, they gain influence over your behavior. They don't need to be smarter than you. They don't need to overpower you. They just need to provoke you. And once you react, you reveal everything. Your frustration, your insecurity, your need to prove something. And that moment is where power shifts away from you. Watch any real confrontation. The person who raises their voice first begins to lose control. The person who interrupts constantly loses clarity. The person who reacts impulsively loses authority. Not because they are wrong, but because they are predictable. Emotion without control follows patterns. It escalates. It intensifies. It exposes. And once exposed, it can be used against you. But the person who remains calm, they operate differently. They don't rush to respond. They don't mirror the other person's energy. They slow the moment down. They listen, even when others are not listening to them. They observe, even when they are being challenged. And when they finally respond, it is measured. Clear. Direct. Controlled. And because of that, it carries weight. Because calmness in a tense situation is rare. And what is rare feels powerful. Emotional control is not suppression. It is awareness. It is recognizing the rise of emotion without immediately acting on it. It is creating distance between the trigger and the response, because in that distance, you regain control. Imagine someone criticizes you publicly. Your instinct is immediate. Defend. Explain. Correct them. But instead, you pause. You let the emotion rise inside you, but you don't act on it. You give yourself a moment. And then you respond. Calmly. Not aggressively, not defensively. Just clearly. That response changes everything. Because now, you are not reacting. You are choosing. And choice is power. People begin to notice something different about you. You don't get easily shaken. You don't lose control under pressure. You don't need to prove yourself in every moment. And that creates a shift, because people test those who react, but they hesitate around those who remain composed. Not because they are afraid, but because there is no clear way to control them. This is the real advantage. When your emotions are stable, your behavior becomes unpredictable. And unpredictability creates authority. because no one knows how far they can push you. The one who controls their emotions controls the direction of every interaction, and the one who controls the interaction holds the power. Most people don't lose power because they are weak. They lose it because they are too attached to opinions, attached to outcomes, attached to how others see them, and because of that, they react too much. They explain too much. They care too much about things that don't deserve their energy. Strategic detachment changes this. It is not about becoming cold. It is not about not caring at all. It is about not being controlled by what you care about, because the more emotionally attached you are, the easier it is to influence you. If you need approval, you can be manipulated through praise. If you fear rejection, you can be controlled through pressure. And most people live inside this cycle without realizing it. They think they are being kind. They think they are being understanding. But in reality, they are being reactive. Detachment breaks that pattern. It creates space between you and everything around you. Space to think. Space to observe. Space to choose. Imagine someone criticizes you. If you are attached, you feel the need to respond immediately. To defend yourself. To protect your image. But if you are detached, you pause. You evaluate. Is this useful? Is this relevant? Does this deserve a response? And sometimes the answer is no. So you let it go. And that ability changes everything. Because now your behavior is not automatic. It is intentional. You are no longer reacting to every situation. You are selecting which situations deserve your energy. And that creates power, because most people are predictable. They react to everything. They get pulled into every conversation. They respond to every opinion. But the detached person, they don't move unless it matters. They don't speak unless it adds value. They don't react unless it is necessary. And because of that, they become harder to read, harder to influence, harder to control. This creates a subtle but powerful shift. People begin to respect your space. They think before approaching you. They choose their words more carefully because they are not sure how you will respond. And uncertainty increases your presence. Detachment also protects your energy. You stop wasting time on things that don't matter. You stop engaging in pointless conflict. You stop trying to fix how everyone sees you. Instead, you focus on control. Control over your reactions. Control over your attention. Control over your direction. And this doesn't isolate you. It strengthens you, because now you can engage without losing yourself. You can care without becoming dependent. You can interact without being influenced by every emotion around you. And once you reach that point, you stop chasing respect. You start attracting it, because people can feel when you are not desperate. And the one who is not desperate holds the power. The more you reveal, the less people value. It goes against everything you've been taught. You were told to express yourself openly, to share your thoughts, to explain your intentions so people understand you better. And yes, that builds connection, but it also removes something powerful. Mystery. Because when people know everything about you, there is nothing left to discover. No curiosity, no intrigue, no reason to pay deeper attention. And attention is the foundation of authority. Most people don't realize how much they give away. They speak too much. They explain too quickly. They reveal their plans before they even take action. At first, it feels natural. It feels honest. But over time, it becomes predictable. And predictability lowers your perceived value. Because when people can fully read you, they stop observing you. They stop questioning you. They stop taking you seriously. But the moment you become less predictable, everything changes. When you don't explain everything, when you don't react immediately, when you don't reveal every thought, you create space. And in that space, curiosity begins. People start to wonder. What are they thinking? Why didn't they respond? What are they planning? And that curiosity pulls attention toward you, because the human mind is naturally drawn to what it cannot fully understand. This is the psychology behind mystery. It keeps people engaged, even when you are silent. It keeps them thinking, even when you say very little. But mystery is not about hiding. It is about control. Control over what you reveal. Control over when you reveal it. Control over how much access people have to you. Imagine to individuals. The first shares everything. They talk constantly. They explain every decision. They reveal every emotion in real time. Nothing is left unknown. The second speaks less. They listen more. They respond briefly. They reveal information slowly, over time. Now ask yourself, Who feels more powerful? Who feels more interesting? Who feels more in control? It is always the second person, because their presence carries uncertainty, and uncertainty creates depth. People pay more attention to them. They analyze their words more carefully. They remember what they say, because it is limited, because it is not given freely. In a world where everyone overshares, the one who holds back stands out without trying. They don't demand attention, they attract it, not through noise, but through mystery, and that is what creates authority. Disrespect is unavoidable. No matter who you are, no matter how you behave, at some point, someone will test you. Sometimes it's obvious, a direct comment, a challenge in front of others. Other times, it's subtle, a dismissive tone, a slight interruption, a joke that crosses a line, and in that moment, everything depends on how you respond. Most people react emotionally. They defend themselves instantly. They raise their voice slightly. They try to prove that they deserve respect. But this is where they make the mistake, because reacting emotionally does not restore power. It exposes the need for it, and the moment people sense that need, they push further, because now they know you can be triggered. Handling disrespect is not about winning the moment. It is about controlling it. Imagine someone makes a dismissive remark toward you. Instead of reacting immediately, you pause. You don't rush to defend. You don't interrupt. You look at them calmly. That pause alone creates tension, because they expected a reaction, but you didn't give them one, and now the pressure shifts. Then, if needed, you respond. Short, direct, controlled, no long explanations, no emotional tone. Just enough to set a boundary, and then you move on. This is important, because power is not in dragging the moment longer. It is in ending it on your terms. When you over-explain, you lose control. When you get emotional, you lose authority. But when you stay composed, you keep both. There will also be moments where no response is needed, where silence itself is the answer, because not every comment deserves your energy, and knowing when not to engage is just as powerful as knowing when to speak. Over time, people begin to notice something. You are not easily shaken. You don't react the way others expect. You don't give them emotional access, and that changes how they approach you. They become more careful, more aware, because there is no clear way to control you. This is the shift. You are no longer reacting to disrespect. You are defining how it is handled. And once that pattern is established, people stop testing you, not because they are afraid, but because they understand something clearly. There is nothing to gain and everything to lose, and that is when respect begins. Power is not what you believe about yourself. It is what others perceive about you. This is where most people misunderstand everything. They focus on intention, on being good, on believing that if they act with honesty, others will naturally respect them. But human behavior does not work that way. People do not see your intentions. They see your actions. They observe your tone, your reactions, your presence in moments that matter. And from those signals, they decide how to treat you. If you appear uncertain, they question you. If you appear reactive, they test you. If you appear controlled, they respect you. This is the foundation of a more strategic way of thinking, often associated with thinkers like Niccolo Machiavelli, not because it promotes manipulation, but because it reveals reality. That perception shapes power. You may see yourself as confident, but if your behavior shows hesitation, people will respond to that hesitation. You may believe you are strong, but if you react emotionally under pressure, people will remember that reaction, because behavior is evidence, and evidence shapes perception. This is why awareness becomes your greatest advantage. You begin to observe not just others, but yourself. How quickly you react, how often you explain, how easily your emotions show, because every one of these sends a signal, and people are always reading those signals. Even when they don't realize it consciously, Machiavellian thinking is not about controlling others. It is about controlling your presence. It is about understanding that every interaction has structure. There are patterns, moments where people test boundaries, moments where they look for weakness, moments where they decide your value. And if you are unaware, you react. But if you are aware, you choose when to speak, when to stay silent, when to engage, when to step back. And this creates something powerful, leverage, because now you are not just part of the situation. You are shaping it, quietly, without needing attention, without needing approval. Because real power does not announce itself. It reveals itself through control, through consistency, through presence. And once people begin to perceive that in you, everything changes. Not because you demanded respect, but because your behavior made it inevitable. Being nice feels safe. It avoids conflict. It keeps things smooth. It makes people comfortable around you. And for a while, it works. People smile like you. They include you. They describe you as easy to deal with. But over time, something begins to change. Subtly, quietly, you start to notice that your opinions carry less weight. Your presence feels lighter. Your words don't land the way they used to. And you don't understand why. Because you've been doing everything, right? You've been kind. Supportive. Understanding. But that's exactly the problem. When you are always nice, you remove resistance. And without resistance, there is no boundary. And without boundaries, there is no respect. Because people measure value not just by what you give, but by what you are willing to withhold. If you always agree, your agreement means nothing. If you always say yes, your time loses value. If you never challenge anything, your voice becomes background noise. This is the hidden cost of excessive niceness. It makes you predictable, and predictability makes you easy to overlook. Not because people don't like you, but because they don't feel any consequence around you. There's no tension. No uncertainty. No reason to take your position seriously. Imagine someone who never says no. At first, they are appreciated, then they are relied on, then they are expected, and eventually they are taken for granted, not because others are intentionally disrespectful, but because human nature adapts. It adjusts to what is consistently available, and what is always available loses perceived value. This is where most people get stuck. They believe that if they become less nice, they will become rude. If they set boundaries, they will push people away. But this is not true. There is a difference between kindness and submission. Kindness is a choice. Submission is a pattern. Kindness respects others. Submission ignores yourself. You can still be respectful. You can still be calm. You can still be fair. But you must also be clear. Clear about what you accept. Clear about what you don't tolerate. Because clarity creates structure, and structure creates respect. When people know there are limits, they behave differently. They think before crossing them. They consider how you might respond. And that changes everything, because now, your presence has weight. You are no longer just nice. You are defined. Balanced. Controlled. And that balance is what people respect, not because you demanded it, but because your behavior made it clear. There is a line, and not everyone can cross it. Respect is not a single moment. It is not something you demand. It is not something you say. It is something you build, slowly, consistently, through patterns of behavior that people begin to recognize over time. Most people try to gain respect instantly. They try to prove themselves in one conversation, one reaction, one strong statement. But respect doesn't work that way. It is not created in what you say once. It is created in what you do repeatedly. It starts with awareness. You begin to notice yourself. How quickly you react, how often you try to explain yourself, how much you adjust your behavior based on others. And once you see those patterns, you begin to change them. You start speaking less, not because you have nothing to say, but because you choose when to say it. You stop filling every silence. You allow space. Space to observe, space to understand, space to think before you respond. Then you begin setting boundaries, not aggressively, not emotionally. But clearly. You say no when something doesn't align with you. You don't over-explain your decisions. You don't justify your limits. You simply state them and move on. At first, this feels uncomfortable because you are breaking old patterns. But over time, it becomes natural. Then comes emotional control. You stop reacting instantly. You stop letting every situation pull a response out of you. Instead, you pause, you evaluate. And then you choose how to respond. This alone changes how people see you. Because now, you are not predictable. You are not easily influenced. And that creates presence. Next, you become selective. With your time, with your attention, with your energy. You stop giving it to everyone. You stop engaging in every conversation. You stop responding to everything around you. And this creates value. Because what is limited becomes important. What is controlled becomes respected. But the most important part is consistency. You don't switch between being controlled and reactive. You don't hold boundaries one day and drop them the next. You stay steady, even when it's uncomfortable, even when you are tested, because people always test patterns. They look for inconsistency. They look for weakness. And the moment they find it, they adjust their behavior. But when you remain consistent, when your reactions stay controlled, when your boundaries stay clear, people begin to understand something. This is who you are, and that understanding builds respect. Not forced, not demanded, but earned through repetition. Because in the end, respect is not about being perfect. It is about being predictable in one way only. Controlled. And the one who is consistently controlled becomes consistently respected. At the beginning, it seems simple, just a moment, a reaction, a choice between speaking and staying silent. But now, you understand something deeper. That moment was never small. It was a reflection of how you think, of what you value, of how you move through the world. Because every reaction is a signal. Every time you rush to defend yourself, you signal dependence. Every time you seek approval, you signal uncertainty. And over time, those signals become your identity. Most people never question this. They spend their lives trying to be liked, adjusting their words, softening their opinions, avoiding discomfort at all costs. And slowly, they lose control, not all at once, but piece by piece, until they are no longer acting freely. They are reacting constantly. But there is another path, the quieter one, less visible, but far more powerful, where you stop chasing approval, where you stop reacting to everything, where you observe more than you respond. And in that shift, something changes. You begin to feel it first, a sense of control, a sense of clarity. You are no longer pulled into every situation. You are no longer affected by every opinion. And because of that, others begin to see it too. You become harder to influence, harder to manipulate, because there is no urgency in you. No need to prove yourself in every moment. Your silence becomes intentional. Your words become selective. Your presence becomes stronger, not louder, but heavier. More grounded. More controlled. This is where respect begins. Not when you demand it. Not when you ask for it, but when your behavior makes it clear. You don't need it to act the same, that you are the same person, with or without approval. And that consistency creates trust. Not emotional trust, but behavioral trust. People know what to expect from you. Not in your words, but in your control. And that changes everything. Because now, you are not part of the noise. You are not reacting like everyone else. You are choosing every word, every response, every moment. And that is power. Real power. The kind that doesn't need attention. The kind that doesn't need validation. The kind that exists, even in silence. So the next time you feel that moment, that urge to react, to defend, to prove something, pause. Just for a second. Observe what is happening inside you. And then choose. Because in that space, you are not just deciding what to say. You are deciding who you become. And if you continue down this path, you will notice something most people never experience. Respect will stop being something you chase and start becoming something you carry. Quietly. Naturally. Without effort. And once you reach that point, there is nothing left to prove, only control to maintain. And that is where your real power begins.